Good evening and welcome to the Murfreesboro City Board of Education meeting. Would we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I will now entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Gilbert, communications, and good evening.
First, we'd like to congratulate board member Dr. Ray Buttram. He has recently been appointed as superintendent of Bedford County Schools, so congratulations, Dr. Buttram.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'd like to congratulate and wish best wishes to our employees who retired. We recently had a celebration at the Doubletree on May the 17th, so they certainly will be missed, but we wish them well. We'd like to congratulate Chick Knitter, who is a teacher at Hobgood Elementary School. He will be attending a NASA Coastal Observation Workshop that will be held in Virginia in July, and all expenses are going to be covered by NASA. And then congratulations to one of our sixth graders at Discovery School, Ben Nelson. He won first place in the Rutherford County Spelling Bee, and his teacher is Miss Christy Mall. We have several announcements from the Discovery School, some students who won awards in the Junior American Citizens Creative Expression Contest, and those students are sixth graders Danielle Brown, Sadie Kreitz, and Liz Tank, who were in the banner category. They won second place nationally, that's across the United States, and first in the Southeast and first in Tennessee. We'd like to congratulate Kylie Dibble in the stamp category, who received an honorable mention in the Southeast and also first in the state. Claire Newberg in the poster category, who received second in the Southeast, first in Tennessee. Mona Ali in the poetry category received second in the Southeast, first in Tennessee. And then Benjamin Nelson in the short story category received first in Tennessee. So congratulations to those students. And while we're congratulating, we'd like to congratulate Jennifer Austin, who is a sixth grade teacher at John Pittard. She was awarded the MTSU Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society Literacy Grant. The amount was $2,250, and with that she purchased 5 Kindles and math and science books, and then the Murfreesboro City Foundation matched her grant and provided 5 more Kindles. So those are your items of communication.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Consent items board, if there's no discussion, I'd ask for a motion for the approval.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Gilbert, action items.
Action item A is the approval of the budget resolution for the purchase of a new reading series, and I'm going to ask Karen Hawkins if she would come please and present that.
Hello. As you know, you approved a committee to look at reading textbooks for the district back in April, and that committee met, and they are recommending that we adopt the series Scott Forsman's Reading Street. That is a 2011 edition, and the series will be an 8-year adoption, and we have gotten a letter from the company authorizing us to have consistent pricing for full 8 years. Typically, when you do a textbook adoption, it's for 6 years, and so they guarantee pricing for that. So the resources, the books, the materials will be consistent for us for 8 years. These books are aligned to the Common Core standards and the Tennessee State standards, and there's a strong alignment. In the budget amount, we will include materials for intervention. It comes with a companion series called My Sidewalks, and each school will have intervention materials for each grade level. And then we're also recommending that we purchase intervention materials, My Sidewalks, for our ELL students as well. So that would give us additional support not only for our core academic reading instruction, but also for intervention as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Ms. Duggan?
I know the new series is aligned with, as you said, the Common Core standards and also the Tennessee State standards. Is there is the company providing, or has the district made a comparison between the two so we know where the Common Core standards are compared to the Tennessee State standards? Because, I mean, the general public may not know, but as of 2014-15, everyone will go to the Common Core state standards. But in the meantime, I know some of our earlier grades are transitioning. So is that information available to our teachers too?
Yes, it is. We contacted the State Department and asked for materials that is really a crosswalk that says here are the Tennessee standards, here are the Common Core standards, and here are where those standards align. So we have gone into the reading series and correlated those standards to make sure that they're there. Now, there are some standards that are Tennessee standards that our students are tested on that aren't in the Common Core standard. So we've identified those standards, and we've listed using on the pacing guides where those standards intersect. So that material will be available for our teachers for next year.
Okay. Thank you.
After, if the board approves this tonight, then we take this recommendation to the State Department of Education. They will actually come out and look at the series and make sure that those alignments are consistent, and then we'll have approval for purchase. So that process will take a few weeks, but we're confident that we can get the materials in the teacher's hand by the beginning of the year.
Are there any other questions? Ms. Hawkins? If not, we'll entertain a motion for the approval.
I move we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, board members? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the like sign? Thank you.
Okay, action item B is simply an approval of that recommendation of the Pearson Scott Porsman Reading Street.
All righty, is there a motion? Are there any questions before the motion?
I do have a question.
Ms. Duggan?
The amount that is listed here, does that include the intervention pieces and also for ELL, the intervention? Okay.
One at per grade level per school for
Is there a motion?
I move we accept this budget amount and amendment to our budget, or ever how, let's see. Let me get this close enough to read. Okay. I move we accept this recommendation for the textbook adoption.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Action item C has to do with board policies.
Members of the board, you have before you tonight two policies in the personnel section of your board policy book, one dealing with procedure for granting tenure and the other for non-renewal of non-tenured employees that you have seen previously, and they're ready for final adoption.
Are there any questions before we entertain the motion for the Ms. Duggan?
I do have questions. I realize that what we're looking at this evening is just to bring us into alignment with the law that, you know, to get us through this year. But there will need to be additional work done on these policies in light of what has just been passed in the legislature. So I guess I won't get into those issues until, I guess it'd be better to wait on those.
I think we'll need to. I checked the Secretary of State's office earlier and didn't find that the public chapter was out. That's the official final. Oh, you got it.
I have it.
All right, excellent. Well, what's the PC
Public
number?
chapter number 70,
Okay.
Senate Bill number 1528.
Yeah. Well, the Senate bill is immaterial now that it's
But
PC.
it's public chapter number
But
70.
so it doesn't take effect now.
Yes.
So we will be coming back to you with
Okay.
changes that need to be made. You notice, of course, that, it's not specified the time period in 16, but since it does reference the attendance for 3 years as an example of something that would need to be updated to reflect the change in the law.
Yeah. And I do think it will have to address some issues that our policies in the past have not had to address, but we can get into that at a later date.
Are there any other questions by any board members? If not, are you ready to, a motion to accept, to approve the 2 board policies under tab 3? Is there a motion?
I move that we accept them with the changes as noted.
Thank you, Ms. Duggan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Of approval? Thank you.
Next, you have the policies to be considered on first reading behind tab 4, dealing with school visitors, fundraising, child nutrition management, zero tolerance offenses, and release of students during school hours.
Ms. Duggan?
Looking at number 5, which is release of students during school hours, under number 3C, unless I overlooked something earlier in reading the policies, I would like for us to add, to sign the school's visitor logbook indicating that the person is removing the child from school, including the date and time of dismissal. I know that's usually a given, that the date and the time's on there, but that's critical information. Just adding, including the date and time, maybe signing the child out instead of dismissal.
Mr. Campbell?
I'm looking at the first policy, school visitors, and then also, I guess, the same one, the releasing of students. The part, I guess, that I'm most concerned about is in the second paragraph in school visitors, where we're talking about individuals' photograph on file in school's office, taken at the time of the student's initial enrollment in school.
Yes, sir.
I question that. I don't know why that is our responsibility. It's not anywhere else.
The concern expressed was that we wanted to have a photo ID, and absent having someone have a photo ID issued by the state, that we would have a photographic record at the school. That was a compromise, as I understood the discussion, and I can call on Mr. Tucker to assist me if I'm incorrect, between not having any form of visual identification, which the school principals believed was important, and putting someone to the expense of getting a photo ID from the state, even though they did not have a driver's license. Particularly, there may be some persons who would be unable or unwilling to go to the state for that purpose. So you're absolutely right that it is not a burden imposed on us by the state. It was a policy choice to meet the 2 interests that had been addressed.
Well, I'll have to tell you I don't agree with it. It's very simple. And we discussed it at the work session, and I know that was brought up. But what that means is we've got to provide somebody to take pictures on registration day and to make sure that those adults somewhere along the line get into the buildings and get a picture made if we're going to adhere to the policy. If someone goes to the bank to cash a check, the bank doesn't take their picture, so they'll have a photo ID. In talking with those people in the legislature, they've either got to have a copy of a driver's license or they can use the federal E-Verify system.
For employment, but that wouldn't help with the visual identification of the person coming to pick up the child at school. And for the child's safety, that was deemed necessary by the principals, as I understood the concern.
So why is it our responsibility to make sure that that adult has a picture?
responsibility that was felt by the principals and suggested to you was that there not be a release of children to someone whose identity was not known, and that the way to confirm identity for a person who might not have a driver's license would be to take a photograph of that person so that it would be of record when they sought to remove a child from the school premises.
I understand where you're coming from. I really do. I just don't agree with it. I think we are providing, for those people who don't have a photo ID, we're providing them an easy way out to get a photo ID. When in by law and regulations, you go to Walmart, you go to the bank, a lot of places. You go into the corner market to buy a six-pack of beer, they've got to provide a photo ID, and it's not one that the market is going to make for them.
It's not a form of identification to be a substitute for a government form of identification. It is simply, it's not proof that they are a citizen or that they have a driver's license or anything else. It's proof that they are the adult who presented the child to the school. Therefore, they are the adult who ought to be able to remove the child from the school. And it certainly does reflect a policy choice, and there are other policy choices that the board can make. It's a balance, as I said, between the obligation to provide schooling for all children, making sure that the children are safe when they're at the schools, and getting confirmation that the one who brung them is the one they leave with, if they do not have another photo ID. I don't think many persons will choose to have their photograph taken by the schools as opposed to presenting a driver's license if they have one. Many people who may not drive may still, for presenting checks and that sort of thing, have an identification card issued by the state. So I think the actual number is likely to be small, but if it proves to be burdensome, obviously staff can come back to the board and suggest a change.
Okay.
Ms. Duggan.
I just remember from our conversation, our work session, that this was not because we were trying to get into the business of making pictures of people, but just that we needed to make sure we provided protection for the children in some way. And I work in lots of different schools, and they have lots of different ways to identify. But I can remember in my mother's older years of her life, she chose not to drive, so she didn't have a photo ID because she didn't have that driver's license. So if I was out with her, they used my photo ID for her, So I know there are those people who would not have a photo ID of any kind because they don't drive, they don't own a car. So I think we're looking at a very small number of children here. But we would want to hear from our schools if this becomes an overwhelming, unrealistic task for them. It'd be nice to know this fall, if we approve this policy, just how many pictures have to be taken.
I think certainly that's the kind of report that can be given. And obviously there's no absolute legal requirement that you have a photo ID.
Yes.
It's a policy choice as to the well-being of the children.
It's a safety issue for the children. Because I've had recommendations that we put in systems to take people's thumbprints, including children's thumbprints, so that way you have, records. And we live in an age where we do need to increase our security. So.
After Dr. Butler, Mr. Campbell.
Okay.
Dr. Butler and then Mr. Campbell.
I just wanted to make reference to line 7, shall be required to present valid photo identification. So if we're going to require them to do this, we need to, are we going to require them to do this? I don't believe we can if we're not going to enforce it.
Well, valid photo identification is defined in the subsequent sentence in the parentheses to include photograph taken at the time of enrollment in school. So I don't think it's saying government-issued identification, the sort of thing one needs to have to fly, for example. It's not trying to say, obviously schools are government, but it's not intended to confirm anything other than this is the same person who enrolled the child.
But I thought at our work session, we had talked about not requiring, saying that we would not require the parents to present a valid photo ID because they could not produce it.
I don't remember that. Mr. Campbell, you have
I
another-
thought we said we were going to require it, and then the statement was made that everybody didn't have a photo ID, and some were here illegal, so what were we going to do with them?
But I thought Dr. Gilbert told us that the principals didn't want us to require the photo ID.
When coming to visit a school, for example, as far as a photo ID, what we're seeing there is not a requirement for that. But if they're going to check out a child, and when they first register a child, the principals felt strongly that in fact, that's what they do now, is they ask for the photo ID.
But this is talking about just visiting the school, so I think we need to be careful in our wording if we're not going to enforce that they shall be required to produce the ID, that we continue to ask them.
That's a good point.
Mr. Campbell.
I don't think it's going to be a major cost thing with digital cameras and all that sort of thing. You print them off on a piece of ditto paper. But a concern that I do have a concern, because I'm concerned on whether or not the adult that brings that child in the first day, who that person may be. That person may not be the parent. So then what are we going to do? We're going to make a picture of that person. Ray goes in and takes my child to school because I can't take him, and so he's not the parent.
I think that may be something that the director should adopt, an administrative directive to clarify what the procedures will be in case the person presenting the child is not the parent or there is an absence of confirmation at some point. And I think that could also address Dr. Buttram's concern in terms of the visitors, because there may well be visitors at other than mass events who would not have a driver ID or would not be a parent ID, so we may need to have a little flex there for those unusual circumstances.
Well, I don't mean to be making something big out of what a lot of people think is small, but it only takes one child to be picked up from one school and not be found, and we're in trouble.
If I had my risk manager's hat on, I'd say don't adopt a policy that you can't be 100% sure you're going to be able to follow 100% of the time. It's certainly, one could argue, increasing exposure by saying you're going to adopt this policy as opposed to making it more permissive. But I think the concern, as Ms. Duggan was indicating, is now's the time of such heightened risk, that heightened security, even at the risk of some potential additional exposure to the school system, is for the best interest of the children, which is, motivating more than lawyers worrying about lawsuits.
Sure, I agree.
Are there any more questions on any of the first readings of any of the policies?
Let me
Ms.
see.
McGannon?
Yes, I believe I did have one.
Okay.
Number 3, the child nutrition management.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's see. At the work study session, we had several of us had expressed concerns about the teachers being required to collect and collect the money each day for lunch charges. This is a change in the way it's been. Is that correct, Mr. Anderson?
This is the way we have it collected here. Is teachers have been collecting the money in the classrooms, and that doesn't change anything. What changes is we're asking them to collect it on a daily basis rather than most schools are doing it 1 or 2 days a week, rather than having the children take the cash money down to the cafeteria at lunchtime. So it was felt it's in the best interest that they collect the money in the classroom so the children don't lose it and get it to the cafeteria that way.
I certainly see your point, Mr. Anderson. Those are legitimate concerns. On the other hand, I've been on the board almost 12 years, and I lived through the time when the teachers collected the money, and then they weren't required to collect the money. I mean, there have been several changes, and when they weren't required to collect the money every day, there was a huge sigh of relief across. I heard from many, many teachers that they were very grateful not to have to do that, have to collect money as they get in, make sure it was all, registered and got to where it was supposed to be. And I really hate to see us start requiring the teachers to do that on a daily basis. Now, I know from our previous discussion at the work study session that there's not an easy answer to this, but I think leaving it as it is not the best answer, not the best we can come up with. I think, what if that takes just 10 minutes a day? Well, by the end of 1 week for one teacher, that's 50 minutes, and then how much is that each month of her time that needs to be focused on instruction for our classrooms? So, and that's one teacher in one classroom. If you spread that across our whole system, how many minutes of instruction are we losing for our children? How much, busy work and taking care of things that are really when their education and their professionalism should be focused on other things, are we asking our teachers to do? I think it's too much. I think it's too much to ask them to do that every single day. So that's how I feel about it.
Are there any other questions or the policies? All righty. Ms. McGannon, we were not to do a vote on these tonight, were we? Are they just for the first reading?
Just for first reading.
Okay. Well, we have another study session, so I feel like we will bring these up again. But certainly, thank you for your questions. Reports and information, Ms. McGannon.
Madam Chairman, I have been away from the school board for a number of meetings, and so Ms. Ridley has corrected me to point out that we should have a motion to adopt it on first reading.
Okay.
Take each one individually,
Yes.
or?
Can we we'll take each one with questions.
Point of clarification. Adopting them on first reading does not mean that we're adopting these in its final form. We're just adopting them on first reading, so when we go back to our work session, we can then hash out these issues that have been brought up this evening before the second reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
I move we adopt the 5 board policies on first reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, sign of aye.
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 Is there any opposers?
I oppose.
Thank you, Ms. Whitley. Would you please note the record? Reports.
Well, no point.
We have a very special guest that is going to be introduced by a very special teacher. So I'm going to ask Ms. Cindy Jones if she would come to the podium, please, with Ms. Lee. We've had the privilege of having Ms. Lee here this year at Discovery School. It's been amazing to watch what she's done with the children. She has more energy than most of us combined, and it's just been a real pleasure to get to know her and to realize what she's brought to the children and teachers there. And I want to thank Cindy for her work in getting her here. So, Cindy?
Thank you. About a year ago, Whaley and I stood before you, and she was new to America, and this program was new to Murfreesboro City. And over the year, Hawaii has developed a wonderful program in language and in culture, and the children adore her. In fact, we had a surprise assembly for her, a farewell assembly, and she boo-hooed and boo-hooed, and afterwards, a number of the children called Dr. Clark and said, "Oh, can't I go home with her in her suitcase? Oh, can she please stay?" But she has to go back for about 2 years and teach over there what she's learned here. So she has a little PowerPoint for you and a speech, and so I'm going to turn it over to her. But she's done a fabulous job. And we're lucky enough to have won a second Teachers of Critical Language grant. It's a pretty rare thing for next year. We don't know yet whether we'll have a man or a woman. And I don't know if they can match this one, but we're going to give it a try. So, Wei Li.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I'm so glad to be here to share my whole year my whole school year. It's such a wonderful year. Everyone in Murfreesboro makes me feel at home. Last Thursday, I got the city gold key from the mayor. I feel so lucky. I would be so happy to come back and visit you again. But please tell the mayor, don't change the lock, okay? Before I start my report, I would like to thank for Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs of the U.S. Department of State. Thank for American Council's Teachers of Critical Language program. Thank you, bring me here. You find such a perfect community, host school and host family for me. Thank you very much. And many thanks for my host family, the Lions. You gave me the family feeling here and the love far away from my home. Susan, you are the best culture mentor. You are also the best mother I have ever met. You are a great sister and friend. I have to thank for Grandma Cheryl Macbeth. Thank for your love like a mother. I'll never forget all those days being with you. Also, I want to thank my mentor teacher, Cindy Jones. Thank you for your trust and help. Thank you, Cheryl Harris, and Dr. Clark. Thank for all my colleagues and all the people I have met here in America. Thank for your help and love. At last, I want to thank my kids, the sweet and loved kids at the Discovery School. Not just the Discovery School. I went to do several presentations at Hopgood Elementary School and Campus School. All the kids, I love them. You make my school year colorful, special, fruitful, and happy. Thank for your respect, your love, and your surprises. Thank you for giving me such a wonderful year. Now I would love to share my whole year teaching at the Discovery School. Like the first time I stand here, last year, I said since I am the first Chinese teacher here, I will build up my students' interest in Chinese language and culture, make my students feel that the Chinese language is not that complicated, but fun to learn in my class. Now, after a whole year teaching, whole year working, all my students love Chinese, and they want to know more about China. Even some of the students said that they want me to take them back to China. I think I made my goal I set up at the beginning of the year. I use songs, practical situations, games, videos, stories, and books to make my students learn language and culture and help them remember. Now, okay, I'm going to show my my PowerPoint here. Okay. This is the beginning of my teaching. It's about the gradings. My students trying to write down those Chinese characters. At the beginning, they already start writing the characters, the complicated part, and they learned the names, family members, Chinese numbers, and the zodiac animals. Those are about and body parts song. I made a lot of songs to them. All my kids at Discovery School, they can sing that. Let me see this part. They're still trying to practicing those Chinese characters. We learned all those festivals from last August. We start with the Mid-Autumn Festival and the Chinese New Year and our Chinese Valentine's Day. Since we have the Valentine's Day here, we learned the Chinese Valentine's Day. And all those songs I translated from the American version, like Merry Christmas and Happy Birthday, 小朋友 is a Chinese song, but I translate that into English so everyone just can sing that song. And we did some practice Tai Chi. They love that part. Because of the some reason we cannot continue to do that, but they love that. We just choose several times to do the Tai Chi in my Chinese club lesson. We learned the Jianzi, Chinese calligraphy. They love that. Whatever it's a mess or what, they love that. That's the family. And I also taught them how to use calligraphy to do the painting. It's kind of a little different to use this painting brush to do the painting. And these are my Chinese cluster. We had so much fun to do that. All those kids want to try this princess hairband and picking up her face mask, the princess. They love that. We're doing the paper folding, and that's a lily. Sorry. And these are the friends. Okay, here is my after-school Chinese club. We had so much fun there too. Even I got several students from from our community. They're 60 years, more than 60 years old grandma, or 2 years or 4 years and 6 years little kids. Yeah, we had so much fun. And this is we had a video conference with Beijing. I did that with Mrs. Jones. And okay, that's the special for the Chinese students. For my Chinese club. These students learn more than those students have my regular class. They learned Waha song, which is a very popular song there. I did several outreaches at Discovery Center with the teachers there. We did the Chinese Christmas tree decoration. Yeah, they love those hairband and the princess hat. Everyone want to try that. And during the Spring Festival, I went there to do a mini lesson there. And all the parents, grandparents, and the kids, they learned my Chinese version Happy New Year song. And I wrote those calligraphy names for them. And this is a little presentation outreach at the First Methodist preschool. And this one is the Chinese Night of the Arts. That's awesome. And I'll talk about this part. I should thank Mrs. McPhee and Susan and all my colleagues who helped me set up everything here to let us have a wonderful night. Those pictures are about our performance at that night. This is our Qipao show. After that performance, we had a little time for people just to experience all those Chinese things like paper cutting and paper folding and calligraphy. And my kids in the Chinese club, they helped everyone to experience these things. They taught the guests to do the paper cutting, paper folding, and calligraphy thing. Okay, this is the Murph show. I love that. I love the Murph, and I cannot stop talking like Murph after that show, really. Mm-hmm. And this is my Chinese book show. I borrowed those books from the Confucius Institute. They have awesome Chinese books books about China. And my kids love that. From those books, they said, "Oh, Miss Lee, I know that China is not just a crowded place. They have big place like Grand Canyon in America too." Yes, they do. And this is a picture they learning Chinese money. I took some money from China so they can learn how to use the money. These pictures are they're reading about panda and Chinese Kentucky Fried Chicken bag. Yeah, this is our the bookshelf. And these are my outreaches. I visited the campus school, Hopgood Elementary School. They did this paper cutting. Oh, I love that. And they gave me so many thank you cards. They really moved me. They want me to visit back again, and they want me to take them back to China. Said that. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I think that's the end. This is the picture I arrived here in the airport. It's really hard for me to say goodbye to everybody. Okay. Thanks again, all my kids and friends I met here. I will never forget this wonderful year. I love you all. I'll miss you. Thank you.
Ms. Phillips.
I just wanted to take a moment and say what a privilege it was to work with Hui on Adventures in Murfreesboro. Murph loves you too, and you were awesome. But most of all, I enjoyed watching you work with the children in your Chinese club and watch how excited they were. And you just brought them to life and shared the culture so beautifully. And I know that it made a huge impression on me and all the people that came to the Night of the Chinese Arts. It was just really, really fun. And I just wanted to thank you and just we're going to miss you too. And also I wanted to acknowledge Miss Jones back there and getting, your grant writing work. Oh, awesome. And now we're getting another teacher. Thank you so much for that, and for all the folks that may have helped and supported you in that effort too. That's all I wanted to thank. Thank you, Wayne.
Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you. Reports and information, you have personnel update under tab 5. You have your board meeting dates scheduled for 11 and 12 under tab 6. And you have your monthly revenue and expenditure under tab 7.
Here's a question on 5.
Okay. Mr. Campbell has a question, Dr. Gilbert.
Going back to tab 5, personnel things. Any idea, and I see Ralph is here and he may know more than the others, any idea how many classified people we have lost this year?
With the EAs and EAs, probably about 18 to 20.
Okay. Those classified people that are not rehired, and I understand what the law says, I'm well aware of that. Do we ever give those folks any kind of an evaluation throughout the year or tell them that, I know why we lost some of the MDAs, because we're converting those into full-time positions.
Yes.
But now, like other folks, do we ever give them any kind of evaluation so they'll know maybe what they're doing or what they're not doing or what they ought to do or what they shouldn't ought to do?
Yes, sir. All classified staff do get reviewed annually, evaluation. It's a one-page evaluation, and it has checkpoints and areas to improve, areas of strength as well.
So all the classified people that we lost, these, what did you say, 18?
18 to 20.
Okay, so each one of them then has received this checklist on why they were not rehired, even though by law you don't have to do so. Is that right?
I'm not sure if we've evaluated every one of them this year, but in the past years, if they've been non-renewed for this year, I'm not 100% sure that we've done that this year for those who have been non-renewed.
But we've done it in years previous?
Yes, and I know that that is our goal, to evaluate all classified staff. But if you're asking me if we've done the MDAs, I'm not 100% sure that we've done the MDAs, the part-time.
Okay, but the others, the full-times,
Yes.
they've all been done, and they know why they were not rehired and that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Buttram has a question for you.
Ralph, are we doing...
I like your shirt.
Okay. Are we doing exit interviews with our people who are leaving the system now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and can we get some kind of report to the board about what their exit interviews are saying, or what you guys are asking? And is everyone getting them, or are the people who are non-renewed, are they being brought back in to give an exit interview?
What we're doing now is we've got an electronic format for the exit interview, and so we're emailing those to the teachers, the certified personnel, and the EAs who have email address with the school system, and those who do not, we are ponying our exit interview, a hard copy of the exit interview to them to ask them to fill it out and complete it, send it to HR directly. We're not having the supervisor do it now because in some cases it may be because of the supervisor that the individual's leaving. So we're not asking the supervisor to conduct the exit interview.
Okay. Could we get at our next policy meeting, could we get maybe just a summary of how many exit interviews were sent out, how many came back, what percentage answered, and then of those that answered, what were they saying in their exit interviews? I think it would be important for us to look at some of those answers.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So in essence, Ralph, we're not doing person-to-person exit interviews. We're doing it by the paper and the email.
Yes, sir.
So we've taken out the personal touch.
Well, the personal touch was a supervisor asking the questions,
Okay.
were you treated fairly and things like that. And
Okay.
it may have been because of that supervisor that the employee decided to make a decision to leave. So we felt that was skewed somewhat. Those exit interviews could have been.
With the classified people that have retired, different areas of the central office, are we revamping responsibilities and duties of those people that are still there?
The
Am I
clerical,
assuming that?
yes, sir. The clerical staff.
But we've lost several out of the central office, haven't we? I say several.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, one has taken a position as a technical secretary at Bradley for next school year.
Okay.
So we've revamped that position as well.
Okay, so you had two to retire.
Yes.
So are we needing to replace those, or are we spreading out their responsibilities to other folks?
We are replacing those individuals. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Are there any other questions from the string staff? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions about B or C,
Which one? About what?
about the personnel update or the board meeting dates?
Dr. Gilbert, there had been a question about the dates being put down, but I had spoke with Mrs. Ridley earlier and a question about the dates. And for the benefit of the board members, the dates that are down are the same ones we had last year. That's the only reason they were added to the form. And since we are meeting, if you're unable to attend or there's not enough to attend, these meetings can be canceled and rescheduled, but they are the same as the ones we had last year. So any board members that find that there's a conflict, please let me and Ms. Ridley know in due time so we can poll the rest of the board members for these sessions. But there's no change in them there from last year. Do you have another question?
I have a comment.
Okay.
My comment is this: these are the meetings that we had last year, but last year when we set up these meetings, we set up the special called board meetings as policy work sessions, and the discussion at the time that we set that up were that these were to be dedicated primarily to policy work sessions, and they would only continue as long as we needed to update our policies. I hate to get them all on the books because once the policy work session is, if they're on the books, then I think it's harder to cancel them once they're on the books. I mean, I just think that people feel like, well, there they are, you know, we can find something we need to take care of. And I'd rather, the way we had done it before, we approved the policy, the special called board meetings for 3 months at a time. We'd say January, February, March, or March, April, May. And I like that because that did not commit us as a board to a year's worth of additional meetings every month. I personally would prefer it that way. Not that we don't have a lot of policies to still get through, and we might do each one, but I hate to commit us absolutely until I prefer it to be the way it was. I do. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Buttram?
Ms. McGann, aren't we required as a board to review our policies, every policy, every year? Now, how we do that, I know is different, but aren't we required to do that every year?
You're required to certify to the state each year that you've had a policy review. Yes, but as you pointed out, the degree to which you do it, the manner in which you do it, can certainly vary.
Well, I think that these meetings are beneficial to just that. Whether we sit there, we have so many policies, whether we sit there on an extra Tuesday night and read 14 of them and agree that they are up to date and are good. I think our policy work sessions have been excellent. I think they've produced a lot of good discussion. I think that they have made our board meetings more succinct and official and professional.
Ms. Duggan?
I could be mistaken, but I'm thinking that there was a change in state law that said that board policy was to be reviewed in a 2-year cycle now instead of a 1-year cycle.
Yes.
And I think that Mrs. Baker had said that this is the second year of that cycle, and that's why I personally felt a greater sense of urgency for us to get through our entire policy before this second year of the cycle ended. Now, I could be mistaken about that, but I was thinking that the law had changed from a 1-year annual review to every 2 years.
I defer, and we'll have to check.
Okay.
I think the certification that you still need to make, I believe, an annual certification to the state that these are your policies and that they've been reviewed. But I think the cycle of review may well have changed. I may be out of date. Thank you for that clarification.
Ms. Phillips?
That is my understanding, too, Ms. Duggan, from Ms. Grissom of the Tennessee School Boards Association. You know, I absolutely applaud Ms. Duggan for, and I have done so on numerous occasions, for bringing us this, more urgency on reviewing the policies. I agree. We needed to get through them. We still need to finish what we're doing. That is not the issue, and I think there are good and bad things about having an additional meeting, because one thing that I don't agree with is having that meeting not televised, because there's so much that goes into these policies, and these policies affect families and children that unless you're a parent that has that extra 4 hours to just come and sit, or 3 hours or 2 hours, ever how long the meeting runs, to come and just sit there and do nothing. And I don't know many, except watch us, I don't know many parents that have that additional time. They're missing a whole lot about what goes on that affects their child. So I have that as a concern, because those meetings are not televised. And television does give easy access to the family to keep up with that particular one topic that they might be interested in that affects their child. Another problem that I have is that, just what I had already stated, these were the dates we met last year, but they were approved in segments and then a whole piece. And it's that committing the whole board to meetings, an additional meeting each month for an entire year, which I have a problem with. Not that we need to stop and not finish these board policies. But I just hate to, because I know what will happen. And quite frankly, my personal opinion is, you set the precedent of setting all these meetings, and that's the way it'll be ad infinitum. So, except for the holidays or whatever.
Mr. Campbell?
I'd rather have them scheduled and know that I need to be there, therefore, I'm not going to schedule something else. And in the last sentence of the introduction here, it says, if circumstances require a change in time or location or the scheduling of a special meeting, the meeting will be advertised through the media, which would mean that other governmental bodies cancel meetings, city council does it, and it's simply printed in the paper, they're not going to meet Thursday night. I like it when we've got all the dates and I can plug them in, and that way I haven't planned something else.
Well, I don't mind it for 3 months at a time, but I sure mind it for a year.
We're going to meet on, June it's the second Tuesday night in June. We're already down to meet. This most likely will come up again at that meeting. I do encourage the board to do as Mrs. Duggan has done. Start in advance reviewing these policies, send them out like we've done before, look through them. If you see some that we've already reviewed, you send them, all of us, you send it to Mrs. Ridley, she sends it out to us, we get a chance to review. That will expedite a lot of these that we sit and go through and we make no changes. So that may expedite the time a little bit. So let me encourage the board to do that.
Do we need to adopt or not adopt this schedule? Because I move that we adopt the meetings as planned, and then if we need to cancel them, we follow the policy.
I thought you were going to talk about it.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second, but there's questions. Ms. Phillips has a question. You wanting to discuss this at the June meeting, when we sit down and discuss it? That was her question.
That's what I thought you had said. That's what I thought.
When she asked me about this, I have no problem with discussing this again on June the 12th. And I don't remember the minutes, and let me apologize. I don't remember the minutes where we did this in 3-month increments, but I believe that you can find that. But when I did ask the question, Ms. Ridley gave me the reply that I gave, that these were dates that we had done before, and that's why they were out here. Even if we vote to accept these tonight, and there is a motion on the floor that I have to carry through, when we meet on the 12th, your question can still be addressed again. That we can ask for the reading of that minutes. If we voted, we do it in 3-month increments, then the motion can be, we can amend this to do it. Is that satisfactory, Mrs. Phillips?
Well, I guess it's the best we can do.
All righty. Thank you so much. There's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of accepting these dates until we can discuss them again and get it resolved? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposes?
I oppose.
If you'll let the minutes reflect that, Mrs. Ridley.
Your monthly revenue and expenditure report, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, behind tab 7 is your revenue expenditure report. Last year, at this month, we were about $80,000 less than we are right now, so we are doing fine on our net income. We're at the 83.3% point of the year. Our revenues are at the 88.7% plateau, so that's obviously a good thing when they're running a little over 5% higher, but it's running very consistent with last year at this time. Our sales tax revenues have flattened off. I understand from the city that they are experiencing an uptick in the sales tax collections, so that's a good thing. So I do expect by the end of the year to see some additional revenues in sales tax. But revenue-wise, we're doing very well. On the expenditure page, we are at 81.4% of the expenditures at the 83.3% of the year, so we're also doing well in that category. The few items that are over the 83%, we've gone through and analyzed those, and a lot of that has to do with the purchasing of things that will be adjusted out when we do our end-of-the-year adjustments for our fund balance usage, and also for some items that will be reclassified in the budget. So we're in good shape on that as well. So revenue and expenditures are in good shape at this time.
Question? What is, and I'm just looking at the overages, personnel services, 105.3% over, is that right?
Yes.
What does that involve?
Personnel services, we had an employee who was transferred from that department because he went and took another position, and we had to pay out the vacation time that was accrued because the position they went to was not under a vacation type of position. We also have one person that we discovered was paid through another budget code, which will be corrected on that. And we also have for the RDA is the company that provides us with our accounting software and HR software, and we also had to pick up an expenditure in that to get that updated that we did not anticipate at the time, and that's why it wasn't in the budget to begin with.
What is community, community service, other support?
Yes, community service is what we had done there is when we originally did the budget, we did not have in there for the person at Franklin Heights. So we had to pay the person through a budget code, but we also received grant money to pay for that person. So you see the expenditure in here, but you don't see a revenue, obviously.
Okay.
Ms. Duggan.
What's the status of the governor's budget and the teacher's raise?
Well, I got a BEP estimate, the Basic Education Program estimate, today for the May, and it is still in the BEP estimated number that the base salary for the state went from $38,000 up to $38,600 and something. So as of this moment, as of today, they're still showing it as a raise and not as a bonus. I don't know if that's going to change because I've heard it both ways now.
Okay. And the other question is, have you had an opportunity yet to share with the teachers about the budget, or are you waiting to do that till after it's presented to the city council?
We're waiting until the council goes through it and after we have the final approvals before we show them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is your attendance report behind tab number 8. We have good news that we have increased the students again. We're at 6,887. Remember, our budget was budgeted at 6,890, so we're within 3 of that, so that's really good news. Our PTR ratios are still holding strong at 18.48 for K through 3 and 19.6 for 4 through 8. Attendance this month, and this was for the 8th month of school, which ended on May 3rd, it was really, really good at 96.7% attendance, which is really strong attendance percentage. We are still experiencing an increase in special ed students at the pre-K, so that's one item that we know they'll be with us and coming into our schools, but that has increased quite a bit over the year. Other than that, the enrollment numbers are ending the year strong, which we're very pleased to see.
Are there any questions for Mr. Anderson on our attendance report? If not, it's other business. Is there any other business that needs to be brought forward for our meeting? Any? Oh, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're done.